Okay, we got the multi-track assignment matrix. It's fed by the channel path only. It has 24 buses. You can choose odd or even with the pan pot from the channel path. The other button here, you can do, by the way, multiple buses simultaneously should you care to. The direct button, when you break the direct button on module number 1, it sends the output of module 1 to track 1, bypassing the combining amplifier. So it means no other input can go out bus 1 because the combining amplifier has been disconnected. Here's the line trim for anything coming into the line input. That's unity gain, and you can go plus or minus 15 dB. Here is the polarity reverse for the channel path. Here are the source selectors for the channel path. Here is the peak and presence indicators for the channel path. Peak meter showing you're very close to distortion. Presence just lights at low level. Here is the explanation for the combination of switches of which you get. Here is the source selectors for the mix path, source polarity reverse for the channel path, and its associated peak and presence indicator. Here's phantom power switch. Here's the mic preamplifier. When it's turned all the way down, you're still getting 17 dB of gain, all the way up to 62 when it's up. Should you still be getting distortion too high a level, when it's turned all the way down, you insert the pad, which allows for 26 dB of attenuation before the mic preamp. Here's the stuff for the insert, send, return. The default for the insert is for it to be in the mix path, but it can be put in the channel path with this insertion of that button, depression of that button. The send is always active, but if you want to use the return, you have to hit in, or you don't utilize the return. This section here is auxiliary sends. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Wow, that was loud. And they can be 9 and 10 if you switch that instead of 7 and 8. The buttons here are post and pre-fader. Post-fader means that with a button up, that any fader movements you do in that path will affect the level. Pre-fader means that it will be independent level control. Do you want to, this button here chooses whether the AUX 1 and 2 are in the mix or in the channel path, because they can't be in both. Then you have level for AUX 1 and 2 and a pan pot. AUX 1 and 2 are always stereo. 3 and 4 can be the same, but you have to press the button to make it stereo, otherwise it's two independent mono sends. The mix channel and pre and post fader stuff are the same. 5 and 6 is mono only, 7 and 8 mono only, 9 and 10 mono only. Pre and post fader and mix channel switching are the same. However, you don't have those buttons for 7 or 8 or 9 and 10. Whatever you choose for 5 and 6, that's the status you get. For instance, pre-fader from the channel path for 7 and 8 and 9 and 10. Below that is the equalizer section. We have two-band equalizers. They're completely independent of one another. We have shelving top and bottom. The low frequency and high frequency bands are shelving filters. The middle ones are semi-parametric. You have a strength of signal. Excuse me. This is plus or minus 15 dB. This is center frequency selection, and this switch right here for the mid bands is the bandwidth Q in this case of 0.2 dB. 0.75, octave, 0.2 octave, 0.75 octave, or a very wide 2 octave range. But as I said, low and high are shelving, so they do not have that connection, that extra switch. We have a low cut or high pass filter for the individual for the mix and channel path with the 3 dB knee at 40 Hertz, individually selected. The default is for these two band EQs to be in the mix path, but they can be moved into the channel path. These two right there with that button, and these two right there with that. That moves all 4 bands into the channel path, but they can be done individually. Whatever EQ you have done here is not actually active if you're in the mix path until you hit that button, or if you're in the channel path, that button right there. This is the right-in strip. This is the rest of the controls for the channel path. We have a channel path on button. We have a solo button. There are 3 solo modes. The non-destructive solo modes are after fader listen and pre-fader listen. After fader listen is stereo, after the pan pot, and after the fader, so it'll sound like it's where it is and at what volume as you have in your mix. Pre-fader listen allows for the fader to be down, and so you don't even have to hear have it down up at all for you to be able to hear. It's a mono solo bus. These two things right here are mute group assignments, so that these have one more solo mode, in place listen, which has to be selected over there, which will be explained in a moment. But that's a destructive solo mode, meaning when you solo something, it actually mutes everybody else. It interrupts their signal paths. It's a very dangerous mode to use while tracking. Then we have the mute groups, A and B in the channel path. When something is assigned to a mute group, you can then control whether it's being muted over in the master section, as will be explained in a moment. A and B in the channel path. Fader flip button. When you hit fader flip, the channel path is going to be controlled by the mix fader, and the mix path is going to be controlled by the channel fader. But all other buttons stay related to the mixer channel path. So this is still a channel path on button, even though you've hit fader flip. Here are controls for the mix path. We have, did I say fader flip there? That's my mistake. That's the stereo B assignment button. The channel path can be assigned to stereo B, another mix bus. If you don't do that, it does not go to it. The fader flip button I just described is actually right there. That's how you would flip the use of the faders. Here are the mute groups as described before, but the ones for the mix path. C and D are available in the mix path. Soloing is the same. Here's the mix on button. That turns the path on. Here's the pan pot for the mix path. There's no assignment necessary because the mix path always feeds the stereo mix bus A. Here's the fader, and there's unity gain on the fader at 0. Unity gain on this fader was the double thick line, which I should have mentioned. None of these matter because they're with a computer system we're no longer utilizing. Over here we have the mute group control area, the mute group matrix. We have the 4 available mute groups, and we can do 4 permutations. So you may do something like this, so that when you press this button, you're muting only mute group A. When you press mute 2, you get A and B, A, B, and C, and all 4 of them right there. So it's just a matrix to determine how you're controlling your mute groups. This right here is a communication section. We have 2 identical control areas, so you can have 2 different combinations available. The idea is when you press a button down and hold it, your voice will be picked up by an onboard microphone and sent out whichever outputs you decide. For instance, out Q1, Q2, this was effects 1 and 2, but it will be Qs 3 and 4. This goes out the studio speakers. This is a slating function. Slating means to mark a take with your voice, to slate it as you do in the movies, to say this is take 3 of some particular song, and that will go out all 24 assignment buses and stereo A and stereo B. Often in analog recording, it's wise to utilize this oscillator. It's a dedicated 30 Hertz oscillator, which whenever you have it depressed, it will go out with the slate, your voice, out all the same outputs, and it's useful for marking tapes so that when you fast forward or rewind with an analog tape, you can hear a beep as it goes by at about 1,000 Hertz. This is, next to it, stereo A mix bus with master fader with unity at the top, stereo B master fader with unity gain at the top. Over to here, we have, let's go up to one of these guys here. There are 4 stereo outputs with identical functionalities, so we'll just talk about one of them. They have an on button, which utilizes turns Q2 on.